Thank you very much. So we'll come back to some more questions, and I'd like to invite Professor Schwab to come up to the podium now.
I'd like to say, first of all, thank you to the organizing committee for inviting me, and thank you to all the people who did a lot of work behind the scenes, and thank you all for coming tonight. This conference has as its focus 3 areas: privacy, surveillance, and security. And I would like to talk to you briefly tonight a little bit about security and its relationship to public media and the documentary film. So speaking of the internet, I was looking at this issue. I want to talk about it a little bit in the sense of a lot of the issues that we're talking about now, and security issues that I'll address through documentary film, I see as a sort of a convergence of 2 different forces. And one of them, of course, is digital technology. The ability to capture, to manipulate, to disseminate images and information almost endlessly. And this is a revolution that you can't really pin down to a single time or a single date. But I thought I'd try. One of the ones I like is the creation of the ARPANET, which is the predecessor of the internet, the first connection of computer servers to one another, the first connection occurred on October 29, 1969, which is 40 years and 6 days ago. So if you like anniversaries, as I do, there's an anniversary for you. This is an early version of the ARPANET with one of its parents, what's Leo's name? Leo Kleinrock. Whichever date one chooses, though, it's clear that the information revolution is brought about by digital technologies is causing human character and our conceptions of self and our conceptions of communication with one another to change in drastic and fundamental ways that constitute a paradigm shift. This year's winner at the Sundance Film Festival for Best Documentary is a film called We All Live in Public, which is about the loss of privacy in the internet era. And the critic John Powers, in writing about the film, had this to say, and I'll quote, "Although it's hard to nail down, information technology is transforming our whole image of the self. It is also whittling away old notions of privacy, from those surveillance cameras that now follow us everywhere, to the unnerving algorithms of that let Amazon predict our taste, to the friends I've had to yell at to keep them from quoting my indiscreet jokes on their blogs. Like it or not, we all do live in public more than we ever dreamed we would even 10 years ago. And the question is, do we embrace this new world, or do we run away screaming, even knowing that someone may post our screams on YouTube?" I think the other profound change that joins with the information revolution to bring us to the state of the issues that we're talking about tonight, it has in my mind, and I think a lot of people's minds, a very specific modern starting point. And that starting point is about 17 minutes between 8:46 and 9:03 on the morning of September 11th, 2001. The attacks on the World Trade Center seized the attention of the whole world. But more importantly, I think that they created a rationale and a justification for the creation of an ongoing war on terror, for heightened surveillance of all kinds of human communication and human traffic, and for, in some cases, the curtailing of human rights. So I think the convergence of the digital revolution with the so-called security revolution has created a situation where we have sort of a dichotomy that's working together. On the one hand, we have private citizens who to an unprecedented degree, are subject to surveillance, towards data mining, towards observation of all of their purchases, to all kinds of private information being available to various sources. At the same time, the governments, on the other hand, are becoming more and more secretive, more and more interested in finding out information about people, and trying to control the flow of information. The 9/11 attacks were staged for maximum visual impact. There are only 2 known pieces of videotape of the first plane hitting the first tower. The only one that you can really see clearly was shot by a French documentary filmmaker by the name of Jules Naudet, who happened to be there shooting a documentary about New York firefighters. By the time the second plane hit, 17 minutes later, it was shot by multiple video cameras from multiple angles, and there are something in the vicinity of 100 still images of it. So as those images cascaded through the internet and the television networks, they're imprinted on people's minds. But I think the thing that connects then to my own documentary work is that also as the motivations and identities of the attackers became known, there was a major backlash against Arab and Muslim people in the United States and to a lesser extent in Canada. And suspicion and fear of those cultures became very embedded in Western cultures, which continues to this day. So I've worked most of my life as a documentary filmmaker. My practice comes out of oral history, of interviews, and revealing people's private lives and their stories through interviews, through examination of their private materials and so forth. And so in my view, the documentary film in a very profound and basic way is in some ways runs contrary to privacy. A documentary is almost always trying to reveal something that was hidden, that was unknown, that's new, and to reveal it to the public. It's about making the private public. Whether that's a beautiful landscape or a government secret or a scientific discovery. We watch documentaries to learn something and to discover something new. In 2003, I was approached by a former student, Mahmoud Kaabour, to work on a project that was being made by Diversus Productions here in Montreal called BEING OSAMA. BEING OSAMA was being made for the Passionate Eye series on the CBC, and the original idea of it was that it would take a group of men who share the first name with the person most closely associated with the 9/11 attacks, Osama bin Laden, Osama being an extremely common Arabic name meaning lion, and through these guys, following these guys, look at the impact of the war on terror and the anti-Arab backlash in Montreal. Now, whenever one is making a documentary film, the whole process is a negotiation between the maker and the subjects about what will be public, what will be private, how we achieve that balance, and all of this based on a sense of mutual trust. So all of the guys had basically had either contact of some kind with the security forces, or they'd had paranoia expressed about their name being Osama. But by the time that we started shooting the film, 2 years later, the backlash had died down somewhat. And in fact, we started shooting the day that George Bush issued his famous ultimatum telling Saddam Hussein that he had 48 hours to get out of Iraq or else. And as one of the subjects said to me at that point, what happened to me after 9/11 seems trivial given what's happening now. So the film moved from being something about terrorism and politics and fear and discrimination, although those things are touched on, and it became much more about how these men saw themselves as individuals but part of an Arab community in Montreal that has very deep roots and great diversity. And it also became, in a way, a film that's really about coming to a new country and trying to find a secure and happy place in a new land. So I'm going to show you a little piece of BEING OSAMA, if I can figure out how to do it here. Which is here and here, right?
Osama? No, I don't have a personal friend named Osama.
Osama bin Laden?
My name was stolen from me.
I didn't like that at all.
I mean, it's a very common name as well in the Middle East, so, and here too. But it's evil.
I like to sue Osama bin Laden because he used my name in a very, very bad way. Yeah.
Sometimes they just say a small comment like, "Oh no, Osama," and they continue, "Bin Laden?" Things like that. I don't find it funny.
Other people asked me if I was named after Osama bin Laden. Okay, but you know, I'm kind of like 24 years old. Where was he then?
My sisters came up with the name Osama. Osama means lion, so I've always had really bushy, curly, big hair.
This woman very sort of meekly walked over to me and sort of whispers, "Why did that person call you Osama?" And I said, "That's my name." She goes, "Oh, that's so unfortunate." I was like, "No, it's not." She goes, "Oh, well, you know, it's such a bad time, you know, the name is synonymous with something bad."
So I came away from almost 2 years of living with the Osamas, or the Osamai, as those of us on the crew started to call them, with a much deeper understanding of the complexity and the diversity of the Arab community in Montreal, and a greatly heightened sense of the immigrant experience as it's now lived. The great majority of the people that we talked to in connection with the Osama project had themselves or their families been touched in some way by war and violence or political, religious repression, poverty and want, and they still had such a great desire to be part of the Canadian experience. And so it was a very humbling experience to know so many people that had gone through so much and to see them under suspicion and suspect because of their religious and cultural traditions. In the post-9/11 world, many countries introduced various security measures, many of them directed at Arab and Muslim people, and many of them restricting basic legal rights, including security certificates, secret courts, and extraordinary rendition, and all of this being done in the name of security. So knowing that we tend to think of security as a police or military kinds of security, to fend off an attack, to preempt an attack, I looked it up in the dictionary, and security basically means freedom or the safety from worry. And so many of these immigrants came here to this country seeking security of some kind: economic security, legal security, religious freedom. And so I think that the identity of whole groups of people as being suspect and somehow subject to different sets of rights calls into question a number of things about how we think about citizenship, how we think about different groups of citizens, who needs to be watched and who needs to do the watching, and if it's possible for us to affect that process and to have anything to do with it. In the wake of the 9/11 attacks, the United States government created an agency called Homeland Security. They combined a whole series of agencies into the third largest cabinet office with 200,000 plus employees. And they're responsible for everything from border security and immigration, citizenship, animal and plant inspection, and dealing with natural disasters. And it's said that Homeland Security has succeeded in preventing any further terrorist attacks in the United States, and that would seem to be true. But they also failed quite spectacularly to defend the security of the citizens of New Orleans in August of 2005 when Katrina struck that city. 2,000 people were killed, and 4 years later, thousands of people still live in trailers and temporary housing. As the hurricane was approaching to make landfall in New Orleans, a young woman named Kimberly Rivers Roberts started shooting home video of the efforts of she and her neighbors to survive the hurricane in the 9th Ward. They stayed in their homes. And the footage from that became the basis for an Oscar-nominated documentary last year called Troubled the Water, which I think, in the segment I'm going to show you, I think it brings into very clear focus ideas about citizenship, and what governments owe to citizens and how some citizens are treated in one way and some citizens can be treated in another. So this is a short excerpt from Trouble the Water. Whoops, whoa. Where are we here? There. There we go. Which one is it?
That's not it.
It's not it? There you go, okay. Elena, what's she doing here? She's in the history department. There we go. Thanks. Thank you.
It's just so hard to. I know somebody that's a survivor, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I went through all of that, and y'all went through all of that.
Still shocked about it. I'm just shocked. Maybe a week or two from now, I might start crying.
I've been crying the whole time. You know, I just like, I can't believe all of what we're seeing on TV. That's the type of stuff you see in third world countries. This is America. It shouldn't be happening here.
Treat us like we was un-American, like we lost our citizenship.
They cannot say that they did not have the means. Our government is supposed to be one of the greatest. But it's proven to me that, hey, if you don't have money, and you don't have status, you don't have the government. And this, yeah, my son wanted to join the Army. I'll be damned if he does. No way. You're gonna go to college. Even if I have to wash somebody's floors to make sure you go. You are going to college. You're not gonna fight for a country that does not give a damn for you. No way.
The documentary tradition goes back really to the beginning of cinema at the end of the 19th century. And the diversity of what is recorded by documentary filmmakers is as diverse as the world that they're recording. But one of the strong and enduring traditions of documentary film is a commitment to social justice and to trying to speak for people who have not been able to speak. And I think as these issues of security and privacy and surveillance come together, there's more than ever a need for strong documentary voices, even in a world where we're drowning in reality television. And if you're like me, you wish that the contestants would go home and people would stop talking to Dr. Phil and we could just be done with it all. There's still a very strong role for documentary, for journalism, for citizen media. It's more important than ever because part of true security in a democratic society is our ability and our willingness to give voice to the marginalized, to expose injustice, and to speak truth to power. We need to ask questions, and this is one of the ways we can ask questions. So I hope this talk tonight and the events that we've had today haven't raised fear in people and made you anxious. If they have, I will leave you with one last slide, which is a revised Homeland Security threat warning, which you can look at this and try to locate yourself there and try to figure out if your fear is real or if the problem, in fact, is fear. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. I have a feeling that there'll be people in the audience that want to take a longer look at Being Osama. Do you want to tell us, is it available?
Being Osama is available. Concordia Library has a copy of it. It's available for distribution through Arab Film Distribution, and the producers, Ari Cohen, still lives in town and is still active in film. So I think if people want to know about the film, they can contact me. I can put them in touch with who they can. And you should all watch it, really. Yeah.